The Particular Abilities of Marinette and Her Discovery of Them by Planter Fun 06, a Miraculous Ladybug, Batman, crossover fanfic. Chapter 15, Tearing Down Invisible Barriers. Akuma, Hellfire. Civilian name, Atif Radwan. Date of akumatization, NA. Location of akumatization, courthouse. Cause of akumatization, summarization. The homicide of the Akuma's family, overwork dispute with a coworker, dismissal in court, likely racially motivated. Immediate akumatization afterwards. Span of the Akuma's destruction, unknown, confirmed to reach Germany, but most likely spread beyond. Team members on the Akuma, complete team. Justice League, non-specific, but assumed all. Bunnex, complete team. Date of purification, NA. Time akumatized, unknown, estimated week. Akumatization public records? No. Pegasus typed the information into the system from the Miraculous Team base of operation, while the rest of them laid on the floor near the desk, all silently listening as his fingers ran across the keyboard, inputting the information into the private server on their Miraculous tech, so that no one could possibly hack in and see the information. None of them wanted to get up. None of them wanted to move. None of them wanted to breathe. None of them knew the exact amount of time they were there. Probably a couple days, for them at least. Vampirion was currently curled up and shaking. No one wanted to ask what he had seen, how long he was there. All over a work promotion. A fucking promotion. Monsieur Radwan worked in a corporate medical office. Recently, he had been up for a promotion with another one of his coworkers, Dorian Thomas. In the end, it ended up being Monsieur Radwan who got the job, and Dorian Thomas simply kept his old one. In anger, he went to the Radwan's family home, where Monsieur Radwan and his wife and 2 children lived, and burned it down. The fire killed his wife, Basman Radwan, and his 2 children. There had been conclusive security video footage from a neighbor's private security system that showed Monsieur Thomas arriving at the Radwan home, along with a trash bag of items that started the house fire itself, as well as the purchase from the supermarket not 5 minutes away from Monsieur Thomas's workplace, with all the equipment needed to start a fire charged to his bank card. Despite the conclusive evidence and a clear motive to kill Monsieur Radwan to claim his job, who was at a local restaurant picking up food to take home at the time of the fire, he was only found guilty of arson, and the 3 charges of manslaughter were dropped, and the charges of conspiracy to commit murder was dropped due to inconclusive evidence, because Monsieur Thomas had never gave a recorded statement that he planned to kill Monsieur Radwan, despite all the evidence that that was his goal. It was worth being noted that the Radwan family were Muslim refugees who had moved to Paris 2 years ago. It's not hard to guess that there would have possibly been a bias in the courtroom, especially considered the hijab ban that had recently passed. The moment that the court was adjourned and Dorian Thomas was handcuffed to be taken to prison for his 15-year sentence, Monsieur Radwan was akumatized into the deadliest and most destructive Akuma the Miraculous Team had ever faced. Hellfire. The Timeline's original team would fail. Vampirion was killed first, Ladybug next, and Marinette knew how. Somehow, for some godforsaken reason, remembered the erased version of herself. She didn't know how, and when she recharged after the whole ordeal, Tiki didn't either. After they defeated Hellfire, at least 40 hours of searching around Paris, only to find him in the 20th arrondissement across the city, each of them having to recharge at least 5 separate times, and them having to leave small bits of food for each other because they had started to run out. 7 lucky charms, and she didn't want to think about how many second chances they took to finally get M. Radwan's watch off his person and release the Akuma. The burns, the heat, the muscles so sore from walking miles for days with only a couple hours of sleep was not even a fraction as painful as listening to that man's screams, his cries trying to console a man as he watched the world burn around him. knowing that he was the cause. They got him to tell them everything. They got him to tell them why he was akumatized, the exact cause, and, more importantly, the time and date of when the murder of Rodwan's family took place. Then they went back. Bunnix arrived and delivered them back to the day she picked them up, only it being several hours earlier, and gave them a goodbye just as short as her hello, and left. They couldn't stop the fire. When regarding the timeline, it was always best to leave it as unaffected as possible, and directly stopping M. Thomas would possibly stop him from causing the fire then, but would likely not stop him from trying at a later date. So Madame Rodwin and her 2 children were 2 hours late getting home, after the bus they were taking home from the supermarket's tire blew out for seemingly no reason at all. Even if they never did know that it was Ladybug and Chat Noir that sat on the building beside the broken-down bus as everyone was systematically filed off to be picked up by the next available bus, narrowly avoiding the Molotov cocktail thrown through their living room window. That was okay. They were safe. Paris was safe. The world was safe. They didn't do this for the fame or praise, and they were okay watching as Bossman Radwan scolded her 7-year-old for picking on her 5-year-old daughter while they were waiting for the next bus to pick them up. When she threw the miraculous ladybug, the cure that would seal the timeline closed and erase the entirety for existence, and the duplicate people would be combined so they would not have 2 ladybugs, 2 Chat Noirs, etc. running around, while everyone simply joined with their duplicate. Marinette merged with the 3rd version of herself, the version from the Hellfire timeline. Maybe it was because she was a Hashin. Maybe it was because she was the one who'd thrown the cure. Ladybug wasn't sure. All she knew was that the memories from that timeline resided in her mind. The images, the memories of members of the Justice League falling, the frantic ramblings of Vampirion over the comms. Pegasus, move! Ladybug, stop! Rena, tackle Carapace! Ryoku, make a water dome! And the all more terrifying silence. The all more terrifying lack of corrections from Vampirion. The report from King Monkey that Vampirion was down. The memories she would keep silent. Chloe hung up Queen Bee. After Hellfire, they all recognized that they needed to have a full team at all times ready to go, and not having the looming threat of one of their members being compromised because their identity was public information. Therefore, Honeybee was born. Chloe didn't want to stop being a hero. She was trained. She fit into the team dynamic. At this point, she was irreplaceable. Chat Noir and Ladybug had an interview with Alia Césaire on the Lady blog where they publicly announced the permanent retirement of Queen Bee and welcoming their new member in her place. Chloe Burgess posted on her Queen Bee Instagram page about how she had a great time working with the Miraculous team, all the friendships she had forged, and all the things she had learned. But it was time to step down and focus on her personal life, and as a show of good faith, Chloe Burgess handed down her Instagram account to Honeybee. Ladybug was really hoping to nip the social media in the bud with the switch of superhero identity, and thought that Chloe would shut down her Instagram page. Chloe was sneakier than that, and after it was announced, Ladybug couldn't do anything about it, because the media was talking about how it showed maturity in Chloe and growth in her time as Queen Bee. And Chloe did it all because she knew exactly what was going to happen, and how they would not be able to take it away from Honeybee. Along with Honeybee's creation, the Miraculous team unanimously voted to share their identities with one another. No one wanted to have barriers anymore. No one wanted to have that invisible wall between them that prevented them from truly being there for one another, especially after Hellfire. No one was left unscarred. Even Ladybug agreed it was the best option to share their identities. She had been incredibly cautious after Chat Blanc. She under no circumstances wanted to repeat that fiasco. But even she had to agree that barriers were getting in the way of the team dynamic. And during Hellfire, a few people had found out each other's identities delivering food. And everyone had found out Kim's identity after he broke his femur, and they all dragged each other to an empty area to heal him and regather. In a few months it would be 2 years since Chat Blanc, and while she didn't know all the conditions that had led to the akumatization of Chat Blanc, It was likely that circumstances would be incredibly different, and her knowing what had happened could possibly help her navigate a way around his akumatization. They all sat on the floor in the meeting room of their base, eating the greasiest food they could find after 2 days of living off their small rations they had saved for the Kwamis. They all started. Kim de-transformed first, to no one's surprise. Then Max, Kagami, and Luca followed. It was really only a mild shock they had. When the magic fell off of each of them, initially it was shocking, but it seemed everyone came to the same conclusion that it made sense. Had there not have been a magical glamour that concealed a person's identity, and magic to confuse everyone, they most likely would have come to their own conclusions years ago. Both Carapace and Rena Rouge transformations fell at the same time. At this point, it was more confusion than surprise. It made sense, yes, but it wasn't hard to see the pattern within their group. As in, they all knew each other. Not only that, but they were all very close within their civilian lives. And Luca was straight up smiling at her with that all-knowing smirk. If he hadn't figured it out before, no doubt he did now. Magical confusion be damned. And then, the person she had truly been anticipating this entire time, Chat Noir, dropped his transformation. "You're shitting me!" Ladybug practically yelled at him before giving him a particularly hard kick in the side. Oh my fucking god! A lot of things were starting to make sense about Adrian. Adrian fucking Agreste, who was sitting in front of her right now, where Chat Noir was moments ago. Frankly, she was speechless, like everyone else in the room, if you barred her cursing. He awkwardly chuckled and rubbed the back of his neck. A nervous gesture that, now thinking about it, she had seen both Adrian and Chat Noir do on many occasions. Yeah, I'm assuming you recognize me. Well, I mean, you did give me the snake miraculous that one time, and probably know me because everyone else here is my friends, and you kinda chose them. But, like, my face is on a few billboards, and, Ladybug interrupted his awkward rambling, shouting her de-transformation phrase, and revealed herself to the entire group, only for them all to immediately shut up and jaws drop. Except Luca, who was just smiling at her with a cheeky grin. "I can't believe Fu pulled this. I should have known." He practically yelled and jumped to his feet, pointing down at her. "I should have figured it out years ago, when you told me you were blind. When you told me, I literally thought of you. Oh, Marinette's blind. She can do all the stuff she does. No doubt Ladybug is the same. I can't believe this. No, exact opposite. I can." Both of them dramatically, because neither of them did anything without a certain amount of farce, dropped into their respective office chairs and groaned. Adrian buried his face in his hands and mumbled, "I should have figured it out years ago," to himself, while everyone remained on the floor, with empty fast food containers in front of them. I need, how?" Alia hesitated, Kim raising his hand. "I would also like to know how." Everyone generally nodded or hummed in agreement with them. "Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Well, it's public knowledge how I was found, right?" Everyone just hummed, and Kim blurted out a yes. "Well, I don't really like to talk about what really happened before I was found. It's some really dark stuff, and I don't really want people knowing about it. But what you can know is how it was an awful situation. Like, horribly awful. It ended with someone doing this to my face and kicking me out." She saw as everyone looked a bit concerned, and Kim and Nino gulped. They probably knew the most about her past, barring her parents, because of how often she slept over at their house. Even as a little kid, nightmares weren't a rare occurrence, especially when she was a child. "Well, it turns out I'm something called a Hashin. The actual ability of a Hashin and how you get them is kind of similar to a meta. Like, my abilities were awakened because I realized I was going to die. My abilities basically fit whatever I needed. Like when I need to heal someone, I can. That's not a power from Ladybug. That's a power because I am a Hashin." Alia, the reporter of them all, simply blurted out her question, with no regard to as if she was speaking. "A Hashin, you say? What are they if they're not a meta?" Ladybug sighed. "So when the miraculous were created, they also unknowingly created the Hashin. Hashins are really souls. When the Magicans created the miraculous, bringing the Kwami from their plane of reality to this one, they used their souls as a sort of guide or funnel to tether them to the jewelry they were wearing right now. They didn't realize that in doing so, they were basically making their souls into a permanent funnel of sorts for the miraculous. While a soul is created when a person is born, and when they die they go to the afterlife, my soul's not new. It originally belonged to one of the Magicans. I'm a reincarnation. Most of the time, Hashins go their entire life without knowing what they are. But if they come into physical contact with a miraculous, or are put into a position where they must awaken their abilities. So you were given the ability to heal, but that doesn't explain how you were able to do crime fighting, among other things that you would think would be impossible. Alia stated as if it were fact. True, partially. For one, people who are blind have other senses heightened to accommodate, which I have found I very much have. In my case, as the Hashin of creation, the Hashin of the Ladybug Miraculous, I am able to see the creation around me. It's not with my eyes. It's more sensing. I call it sight, but it really isn't. It's kind of... You all watched Avatar, right? Adrian just cut her off. She threw him a weak glare, but he seemed completely unconcerned. Everyone but Kagami nodded, and Chloe growled. You mean that godforsaken American cartoon that you forced me to watch? Don't lie. You liked it. You even rewatched the beach episode because Azula was your favorite character. Chloe huffed at Adrian and turned to face the wall behind him. Well, basically, Toph Beifong, but instead of vibrations. She just sees stuff that is living or was once living. Somehow, everyone simply understood, and gave a round of ohs circulated. Kagami still seemed confused, but she would probably just ask her questions later. Wait! Alia screeched and pointed her finger at Marinette. Is that why my sisters think you're a witch? After you left them, they were begging my parents never to let you come over again because they said you were going to curse them. I swear they got their butts beat by my parents. We all thought they were talking about your scars. Ladybug laughed so hard she thought she was going to pee her pants. Possibly, though I didn't mean to get them in any trouble. I just thought that giving them a bit of a scare would be funny. Tell your parents to calm it down with the punishments. Tell them I did it to myself. She wiped the tears on her cheek off and settled back in her chair and sighed. Kim suddenly shot up from where he was laying on the floor. I wasn't wrong at Adrian's birthday when I said you had echolocation. I wasn't wrong. I don't use echolocation. I have a radar-like sight. They are not the same. But I was right. I knew you had some kind of sight, and you all laughed. You know, he kind of was right, Nino smirked. She needed to get better friends.